Okay, today we are going to be talking about Betsy Ross and her importance in American history. First of all, everybody knows the story that Betsy Ross designed the original continental flag, 13 stripes and 13 stars in a circular formation on the field of blue. But what people don't know is that Ross's story is not one that's set in stone and concrete. The purpose of today's video is to discuss how American myth and American storytelling has become relevant in history and why that is. So first of all, as previously alluded to, the story of Ross's making of the American flag is not very credible. The story came out first around the Civil War, when her grandson, William Canby, basically said, hey, I have a notice here from the Congress that Betsy Ross designed the American flag. It was interesting because when that story was fact-checked, Canby couldn't produce the actual physical evidence, the note from the Congress to Betsy Ross saying that she should produce the flag. So this immediately began raising some doubt within scholars like George Henry DeBell, who wrote a book about the flag, and he mentioned the weak credibility of Canby, basically saying that Canby's philosophy came from one source that only he saw, and that's not very credible. Other historians did discredit Ross as well, basically all saying, well, the only thing we know about this is what her family's been saying, and you know how family oral tradition goes. Sometimes things get misinterpreted, sometimes things get embellished, and we can't really take the Ross's story too seriously. The problem is that the American public had greatly accepted Ross's story already. School teachers and parents and people who were interested in the revolution but not revolutionary historians began spreading Ross's story as one of truth, that yes, Betsy Ross did make the American flag. She was commissioned by George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and the Congress to do so, and this was all her. She did it, and she's the one who deserves all the credit. What's interesting is that some people believe that Canby misinterpreted the source, that Ross did design a flag, but not the flag. A lot of people think that the flag was designed by Congress, and the official flag that represented America during the Revolution was all Congress's doing. What's interesting about the flags is that they were all very different. Some of the stars had 6 points, some of them had 8. Betsy Ross's had 5, which is the one that made it into the official final design. A lot of people don't think that Ross had anything to do with flag making at all, and that this was the first flag she had ever made. So when stories came up about Congress saying, okay, well, here's what we want to do. We want to add more stripes as more states enter the Union. And then Betsy Ross saying, you can't do that, it'll screw up the symmetry of the flag. That's one of those things where, like, how could a woman who had never done a flag before have known all that and had so much expertise? It doesn't make sense. Ross actually kind of overshadows some other women who did have more meaningful roles in American history. The difference is that her oral tradition was passed down by her family members and hit the ears of more people, as opposed to other women who actually had more significant roles who did not have that. Ross's name itself was also changed for the sake of the story. You know, it's a lot easier than saying Betsy Ross than it is saying the other names that she took on as she was married over and over again throughout the course of her life. It's interesting how Ross's story plays a role in American mythology. Paul Revere had a similar situation. Revere was seen, or his accomplishments were doubted at first, but then historians backed him up with physical proof and evidence to kind of assert Paul Revere's name as important in the story of American heritage and independence. Ross, however, does not have those physical examples, but her influence, her patriotism, and the oral tradition that was passed down from her family members and other people has greatly influenced Ross's role in the American Revolution. So it's important to realize that while the physical evidence doesn't exist, Ross's contribution to American history was not a physical, tangible one. She might not have actually done anything to cement herself in American history, but the fact that she could have, and the fact that people took that as a symbol of patriotism and a analogy as to the role of what women could do during the Revolution, was very important in Betsy Ross's story and American history.